Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello everyone and welcome to today's Learning with LinkPoint 360 open training session. My name is Jill McConaughey. I'm the Director of Marketing and Client Relations here at LinkPoint 360, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to join me for today's presentation. Before we get started with today's content, I do want to cover a few brief housekeeping notes. All attendees are muted and placed in listen-only mode to start with today. As I go through the training, I will definitely unmute specific people if you have questions that need a little bit more discussion and where everyone would benefit from a little bit more collaborative environment. In the GoToWebinar viewer, you should have the option to make the presentation full screen for easier viewing. And since this is an open training, I want your questions. You can go ahead and type those into the questions section on the GoToWebinar panel, and I will be pausing along the way to make sure I answer them. We'll also have some time at the end today for some back and forth Q&A. I will keep an eye on that questions pane. Feel free to let me know even now as we get started if there's a particular topic you definitely want me to cover. I am also recording the session, and I will make sure to send a link out from today's presentation for everyone later today. So most of you should be familiar in one way or another with LinkPoint 360 and the products that we offer at this point, although some of you may be a bit newer than others, and I see some longtime customers here on the call, so welcome to everyone. We do support a variety of CRM and email platforms with standard and custom integration, and of course we can deploy our software across a variety of environments. For today, and to simplify the training session itself, I'm going to use my standard setup, and this shows the integration options for Salesforce and the Microsoft email clients. So if you're using a different platform, such as Lotus Notes, most of this should be similar or applicable to you, and I will try to point out along the way where it may not be or where there may be some key differences. If you have a question about something like that, if you're on a different platform, absolutely let me know and I'll try to answer that. And we can also, of course, set up a more personalized training for you if what I walk through today is a little too different or off topic from what your personal organization needs are. So when we talk about our Salesforce integration options, LinkPoint Connect is actually offered across 3 different deployment methods or environments. The majority of you likely have LinkPoint Connect installed locally on your PC, and that's where I'm going to start the training today. If you are using our meeting notes integration and or our cloud integration with the auto syncing, we can certainly also take a tour of those as well. Again, message me in the questions pane if there's something in particular or a platform in particular you'd like me to focus on. My goal is to help you get the most out of LinkPoint Connect, no matter where you're using it or how you're looking to use it or how you're currently using it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the training by showing you how to do some of the core functionality that I think is really key to making sure you get the most value out of your subscription. And that surrounds email recording and working with Salesforce data across our different application environments. We'll also then expand if there's interest in taking a look at how you can auto sync if you're using our cloud version. And this one's great because it works cross-platform, so that's also going to take care of our Mac and mobile users. And then we can also take a brief look at how to get the meeting notes piece of our software up and running, depending on where everyone is with their implementations. So again, before I dive into the content, to help me guide you through what I hope will be a valuable session today, please do remember to submit your questions along to me. We can take this in whatever direction will give you the most value. So with that, I'm going to switch here, and we will get, hopefully everyone can now see my Outlook. And this is our desktop edition, as you'll hear us talk about, and I'm running the PC application version of this on my machine. And you'll know you have LinkPoint installed with this version of the software if you are in Outlook on your desktop and you see the side panel here that's sort of hanging out on the right side of my screen. And the first thing I'm going to do before we even talk about how to record an email or where to go in the system is actually, let me do one thing here because my screen is being a little funny. There we go. Is we're actually going to show you how to update your license key. So you can always search your system for LinkPoint Assist, or you can go up into the LinkPoint tab here and click Configure. And in either event, you're going to land inside our configuration box. When you are deploying this to your team members, there are a few steps I always like to point out to make sure you get everyone set up correct so that they can use the integration pretty much out of the box. The first is to come in on this component here and obviously make sure you enter your user information, but also your unique license key. And as a customer, that's provided to you during the point of purchase. If you're not sure what your license key is, you can contact pretty much any team at LinkPoint360. We can all look that up pretty easily for you. And you're going to want to add that in here and click Verify License. That activates your subscription so that your users have access to the software functionality. The piece that some folks miss is that you have to take the extra step, and every user, regardless of whether or not we've pre-configured and locked your license key down, must come in here to the Salesforce connector and connect to Salesforce. This is what allows our application not just to run because you have a subscription with us, but it allows our application to communicate with Salesforce. So I do get a lot of questions around, I've added my license key and it's not working. Absolutely come here first, make sure that you're connected, do a test connection, make sure you get a connection succeeded message. And from there, if there's still issues, of course, we can help troubleshoot. So with the housekeeping out of the way, let's take a look at how the side panel and LinkPoint Connect work. And again, I'm going to do a little bit of a high level, and I can cater this depending on what questions come in. Everything with LinkPoint Connect, pretty much regardless of whichever version you're even using, is email address centric. So I got an email here from Fred, and my side panel is populated because there is an email address for him in my system. If I get an email from someone who's not in my instance of Salesforce, we're going to look for the address and we're going to tell you right up front that someone's missing. So pretty easy way to see right off the bat who's in your CRM and who is not. From that point, you have a couple of different options once someone is in your system, and we'll talk about that first. The first is being able to edit that information. Anywhere you see a pencil icon, that's going to be your edit option. So I can click on this icon, and I get what we term a smart form. Smart forms will be different for every customer, so your form will look different than mine. And what this is doing is it's looking at the contact in Salesforce and the contact page. What fields does Jill or Sally, depending on who I'm connected as, have access to? What fields are required? And what fields am I allowed to edit? In this case, if I need to change a phone number, I need to update a title, etc., I can do all of that from here. And any change that I make, even if it's as simple as removing a country or something, when I click OK, the side panel is going to refresh, and it's an immediate write to Salesforce. Now I just got rid of the USA tag, so you can see now his address doesn't list a country, but in most applications you're looking at updating phone numbers, updating job titles, and all of that can be done dynamically and immediately through the side panel with smart forms. It will work the same for other objects, so you can update accounts. If you have, let's find one, an opportunity and you'd like to change or advance a stage, I don't have to go into Salesforce to find it and to change it. I can do that right from here. Great example, I don't own this opportunity. The system will prevent me from doing that. So depending on what your workflow rules are and levels of access, everything is going to be honored. Field validation, it's all covered in here. So I won't go ahead and change this opportunity because I don't have the permission. There is an option in the top right corner. It's the only pencil icon that's not really next to any text, and this is going to be your create. So if I need to create a brand new opportunity here for Fred, I can fairly easily do that. And you'll see that the form comes in and it's populated a little bit. The opportunity name comes from, by default, the subject line of the email. It's trying to be helpful. If you need to change that, you can absolutely override it. The account name, it knows that Fred, who emailed you, who you're viewing at the time you clicked the create button, is a member of this account. So it's actually going to also help me out by finding the account for me to relate the opportunity to. Again, you have lookup fields here. You can absolutely go ahead and override or change that. You will not be able to save anything until you apply all the changes to all the required fields, and you saw what happens if you try to change something you don't have access to. The body of the email that I was on when I initiated the new form gets dropped into the description field on the opportunity. You can always delete that. It's a nice to have. It's a little more useful. It works the same on cases, so you can always start a case and keep the email content on it. So it just depends on how you work with data. Let's go ahead and hit cancel. Now you can create, let's switch to someone we don't have. You can create a contact or a lead up here from a new smart form. And if I click that, you'll see I have a nice big blank contact smart form. I can sit here and I can type everything in, but let's say I don't like to do that. What we can do for contacts and leads is actually use our drag and drop for email signature feature to auto-populate that smart form. So what does that look like? Step 1, highlight your email signature. Step 2, I'm going to click down with my left mouse button and I'm going to hold. So I have not lifted up, and I'm going to move or drag for the drag and drop the information with this circle through with the line through it all the way to the bottom of the side panel. And you'll see here we have a couple of icons, and you'll get to be more familiar with them. But when you mouse over, see how I'm getting a plus sign? Hopefully everyone can see that. It's a bit small. When I let go of my mouse button over this one, it will attempt to create a brand new contact. First things first, it searches my system to make sure I'm not trying to create a duplicate record. I happen to have someone whose name is actually Michael James in my Salesforce, so it's making sure I don't want to update this actual customer. If I did, I could accept these changes and I could overwrite an existing record. In this case, I absolutely do not want to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and click apply. Now we have basically the exact same smart form for contact that you saw a minute ago, but it is filled in with all of the information from the email signature. Let's move that over so you can see, minus all of the manual data entry. You still have to validate fields. I believe in this example, if I try to save, it won't work. Yep, because that's not a real account, so it's going to fact check for you. It's also going to require other required fields. So if you have something that's not usually in an email signature that you require people to populate as part of a contact creation process, you'll see those fields. They'll have the red line. They'll be expected to do that. If I were to validate everything and click OK, it would immediately, again, write that data to Salesforce and create the contact. So that's record creation, and I'm keeping an eye on both the clock to keep mindful of everyone's time as well as the questions pane, and I don't see anything, so we're going to forge ahead. And I want to make sure that you all understand the two main different ways you can record emails with this version of our software. Because once I have folks up and running with the right license information and they understand what fuels this side panel and how to populate the data, now that everything's in Salesforce properly, you can actually start saving emails back to the CRM, which is one of the key features of the software. Whether you are in your inbox getting an inbound email, or let's do this just to make it easier, or if you are doing an outbound email, you will see, most likely, unless we have configured the system differently for you, two different recording options. The first one will be this record to Salesforce or send and record option. The other option, you'll see the smart in front of, so our smart send or smart record. Inbound, outbound, same exact functionality, different button names, because when we're doing the outbound, we're also sending the email as part of your relating process. So we just like to point that out. It's a send function, not just a tagging function. So make sure that your outbound email is completely ready, composed, and ready to send before you try to relate it. And I'll explain the difference between the two now. So the smart options are an automatic record, and we'll do it on an inbound here. If I click this, you're going to see I didn't have to think about it, didn't have to do anything else. I just got a pop-up notification telling me that an email was recorded. And what the system did was it looked at every single email address on this email. It checked Salesforce for matching contact or lead records with those email addresses. And everywhere it found a match, it recorded the email too. I know because I've been demoing this with quite a few times with the same exact people, this email went to both Fred and Jake. I didn't have to go find a record. I didn't have to take any additional action. This is great for people who just need to tag things back to contacts or leads and don't really want to slow down to think about where to actually save to. When we talk about the other option in the record, more manual approach, either one you pick here, you're going to get this record window. This does the first part for me. It runs that Salesforce search and it finds those two records that I said I knew it would record to, and it found Jake and it found Fred. But we didn't record this yet because this window allows you to redirect the email exactly where you want it to go in your CRM. What does that mean? Well, if I don't want it to go to Jake, red X, it doesn't have to. If I want to search for someone else, completely different and unrelated on the email, I can run that search and select and add a person. You can tack up to 50 contacts on here if that is relevant to your communication or your workflow. But the other powerful thing that this window does, other than letting you add and subtract contacts and search, is you'll see this related section. You can pick an additional related record to tag the email back to, and it doesn't have to be a person. Accounts, cases, opportunities. We have customers who implement custom objects and are tagging things back to orders or invoices. So you have the power to also say, I want this to go to this opportunity. Now, when you get really comfortable with it, this takes about 2 seconds to kind of click, search, and be done. And when I click this, it's actually going to, in one shot, record both the email to both of these contacts and the opportunity at the same time. So the record window is where you're going to want to go if you want to control exactly where the item goes, or you need to relate it to one of these additional record types in Salesforce for your workflow or your tracking needs. If you're good with everything just sort of landing on whatever related contacts there are, then you can use that smart option. I'm going to stop for just a second, make sure I'm not going too fast and that I have everyone, because that's the list of high-level topics that I had for the desktop edition training piece. We're going to talk about a couple other things, but if there's anything else that you want to see, any questions you have, if you have this version of the software installed, I'll give you a second, make sure I don't miss anybody before we move on. It looks like I have everyone, so we will forge ahead. And again, if you have other questions later, you can certainly, and we'll make sure that you have access to this. You can check out the knowledge base. There are in-depth videos where I go through every single button and icon in the software. I just want to make sure on this call that we're either addressing your questions or that we're hitting on the key features that are really going to bring you value, and you're really going to see the CRM adoption and ROI go up, because when you have the right data and the right information hitting those records, you have way better opportunities to handle, more robust reporting and pipeline management, even coaching your employees. So that is the core of our PC version. Now, some of you may be either using the cloud version of our software, or we have some customers who are doing a mix, because what this thing you're looking at here does is it works really, really great on a Windows PC, where you directly install it locally, and hopefully everybody has permission to do that, or you have to work with a Citrix admin or some sort of virtual desktop environment. Now, we developed, let's switch here, our cloud edition to support Mac and mobile and all sorts of other unique or cross-platform setups. And if you've never seen it before, welcome. This is our cloud edition. And if you have, welcome back. The first thing you'll notice is it looks completely different. And that's mainly because it is a server-side solution. It's all developed, it's based in the cloud, it's hosted, and currently there is nothing to install. So from a deployment standpoint, it can be easier. It's a lot more centrally located, and admins can manage their accounts through their web portal. I will point out most of everything I just showed you on the desktop side works the same exact way 99.9% the same way for our Lotus Notes customers. But when we're looking at our cloud version, you'll see down here, we currently only support Outlook Exchange environments. So if you're running Lotus Notes or Domino Server or Gmail, and you're using Gmail through your Outlook right now, that will not be supported. So I'll spend just a couple minutes on this just to either, again, take some questions, etc. But from a high level, what happens is you come into this web portal and you can preset your sync jobs. Each user connects to Salesforce and Exchange, just like each user has to connect to Salesforce when they're in Outlook. And you can set your sync settings so that everything runs automatically. So your email is no longer a one at a time click to record like you just saw in the record window. What this system does is it lets you establish automated sync rules. So I can tell this to sync, and this is how I'm currently set up, sync all of my emails automatically, just put them in Salesforce for me, I don't want to think about it, where there's a matching record. So if I get an email in from Fred, the next time that this sync runs, and mine is set to run once an hour, it's going to go ahead and it's going to automatically sync that email for me. I don't have to think about it. You also have an option to sync emails only when you tell the system to. So it's an opt-in versus an opt-out, or vice versa. I always get those two confused. And what that means is you can sync a one-off email here and there where you tell our system to. And we have a couple ways to do that. So if this is something that's of interest to you or that you'd like to explore the settings with further, you can let me know. But what I like to always point out is that this is great because it works anywhere you're interacting with that particular Outlook or Exchange account. My workflow example is you could be sitting at your desk, sending emails from your Mac using Outlook or using whatever other email application as long as you have that Exchange account there. You can switch to your webmail. So here's my OWA. So I could be sending emails from in here for whatever reason. And then I could go and I could get in my car and I could drive to a client and I could shoot somebody an email from my Android phone. And as long as I'm using my work, in my case, my work account or the email address that I've connected within cloud, our system is going to see every single one of those communications that you sent from 3 different devices or platforms and manage them exactly the same. And I didn't have to install something different on a Mac versus my phone versus in my webmail. So centralizing these settings and automating it while you don't see that side panel and you lose a little bit of that interaction that some of our customers are used to, it simplifies it if you have teams with different types of setups or people working across multiple devices or platforms. I think I have data in here that I can show you because I do get, oh, nope, must have rebuilt my machine. So what I do get asked a lot is, well, how do I know if something's synced or not, if everything's automatic, what if things don't go in? And I apologize, this must have gotten wiped out overnight because I test all the time. But what you'll see when you have everything running is we have a screen here. Yours will be less blank than mine, but it will actually list for you every single email that's synced, items that didn't go because there was no contact that matched at the time, items that were excluded because you've set them to be ignored. Maybe you've told the system to ignore a certain email address. So our sync rules are so robust and our sync history is a pretty firm audit of the rules that you set that you'll still have visibility either as an admin to see how all of your users are functioning with the tool, or as an end user, you'll still get to go in and be able to check, clean up, add contacts, and have the system tell you when items don't go. So just because it's automatic doesn't mean that you have absolutely no insight into what it's actually doing. So hopefully that helps clarify how that works aside from me having no data on that screen. I see a couple questions. Let me just stop and see how we can address them. Excellent. Can you have the cloud running and the Outlook version too? Currently, yes. So we would probably, Laura, want to talk about why you would want both. And we do have use cases where both make sense. Let me explain why. We have customers who use this version here with the side panel. They'll install it either for themselves or across the team because they are mainly Outlook based on a PC, and the users like having the side panel. They can see stuff with it. But having the cloud edition here also configured to run in the background simplifies calendar, contact, task, and email sync. It makes things extremely consistent because you can preset and lock those sync settings so you can control how data is moving, and you can more easily control and have insight into how the data is moving. So like I showed you with the sync history screen, that was blank for me. So you can run both. If your teams are a mix and you have some Mac users, you won't be able at this time to use both for everyone because this side panel is currently only available on PC installs. So we have people who use them in combination with each other, like I just explained. We have clients who split their users up and have half of them on this version and then half of them running on cloud because they have a whole group of people who only use Macs. So long story short, they can work together, and what we'll usually do is do a brief consultation and learn exactly what your user base looks like, what you're trying to achieve with your sync, and then provide you with sort of a consultation and best practice for how we think we can get you up and running most effectively. So if that's of any interest to you, you can let me know. I can do that call personally with you. We also have account reps who will hop on and do some demos and just sort of fine tune the scope of what you're trying to achieve. Our whole goal by creating all these different connections into Salesforce is to get the right combination for each of you, so all your teams are up and running and connecting with Salesforce the way that you need them to. And Laura, I know I said a lot, but if you need any more information, just let me know in the chat there. I see another question in the meantime. I think that dials back to desktop, so let me just switch back again. About changing suffixes on a contact. So let me take that up a level. When you are editing a contact, we're going to use our smart forms. Again, this is the PC desktop version. Your fields will be your fields. I have a salutation field. I do not appear in my Salesforce to have a suffix field. I know you're talking about like the PMPs and the juniors and all that. Our Salesforce apparently just does not, and I have a lot of fields. Doesn't look like that it has it. Now, remember, your smart forms will look different than mine. They have to, because we're dynamically looking at Salesforce. We're saying, which fields do you have access to for this type of a record? And we're showing you yours. So if you have a field that you don't see me showing you, that's perfectly expected. So if you have this feature, you can just go ahead and click on the button and make sure that it's displaying exactly what you expect. If you know the field exists in Salesforce and you're not seeing it, definitely reach out to me or my team. Let us know. We can take a look and make sure the configuration is reading the expected file groups. So yes, we're going to read all of the fields in Salesforce for your smart forms. Put completely differently, smart forms are not configured through LinkPoint out of the box. We will read the fields you have in Salesforce for that record type. So if you need to add a field or you want to see a field for favorite color on a contact, I can't add that for you. You have to make sure that the favorite color field exists in Salesforce. If it does, it's 99% likely going to show here. I think we have a couple of exclusions just so that these forms don't get super crazy long. But yeah, you have to maintain, we're going to read your setup. We're not going to generate these forms for you as part of the rollout. Great questions, though. And I'm just making sure I haven't lost anything else here along the way. I know, looks like I covered that. Okay. Switch back to cloud. One last thing I always like to point out in cloud, which my desktop folks always kind of roll their eyes at for me. Cloud Edition includes a dashboard. We get this question a lot for our PC platform. People want to see how many licenses do I have? How many users do I have actively using it? Did so-and-so install this correctly on their machine? If you need that information for the PC desktop version with the side panel, you can always email my team. We have the ability to run reports against a backend database and get you that information very quickly. Unfortunately, there's nowhere for you to go and see it yourself because the application is installed locally across any number of machines or even servers and all that Citrix stuff. But great news, if you're on the cloud side, we have a dashboard and you can see how many licenses you have purchased, how many have been allocated, which sync jobs are active, and most importantly, and at the top, you can generate your own user reports. Now, if you have any questions, you need assistance generating something or reading one, we also have access to run those for you. But our cloud admins really like being able to come in and monitor their usage. It tells them who didn't connect. It tells them who has so many unresolved emails they most likely aren't creating contacts in Salesforce and provides them with a coaching opportunity. So just want to make sure if you're on the cloud side or thinking about adding the cloud side, you will have more insight into your usage metrics at the tip of your fingers than you would maybe normally be used to seeing with desktop, but usage reports available across the board. All right. Cloud Edition, like desktop, does a whole lot more than I'm about to explain on this call. So if you are already up and running with it and have questions or want a more in-depth look or want to explore adding a sync that you don't currently have activated, our entire team is available to help you figure out what that looks like for you and help you enable that. Or if you're still exploring and not sure what combination you need, you can still reach out and we're happy to consult on that. The last thing I want to talk about, because I know a few of you have looked into our last component here, and that's our meeting notes integration. And this is something that's a bit newer, but I like to hit on it just to make sure everyone feels comfortable using the tool. And let's switch some of this off. Too many windows. Oop, don't want that one. Give me 1 second here. Let's clean this up. All right. Almost clean. That's very busy looking. Sorry about that. All right, hopefully everyone can see. I think I've got the iPad up and running right here. Okay, looks like it's working. Sorry about that. So what we offer as our third layer of integration is our, I'm really trying to get rid of this PowerPoint. It's just not cooperating. So there we go. All right, is our meeting notes integration now that we can see the screen straight. And what that does is it lets companies sort of create this experience for their end users, some sales, some support, anything really customer facing, where they say, every time you interact with a customer based on your role, we need to be collecting some feedback from what that interaction was. Famous use case, I have sales reps, they go out in the field, they visit clients, they go into meetings, and then they put a note in Salesforce on the opportunity that says, met with Dave. And from a management standpoint, I don't even know who Dave is, and I'm wondering what you talked about. So what we've developed is this meeting recap feature. And what you're seeing here on my screen is actually the iPad or the mobile app version of it. It also does integrate into the desktop edition. So if you want to launch this from your side panel, we can set that up for you. That said, what happens is you sit down with our team and you tell us, these are the questions I want people asking when they interact with prospects, with clients, depending on their role. These are the records and these are the fields that we want their selections or their responses to map to. Once that sort of housekeeping is done up front, you can deploy this app. We can set this up in your side panel. I'm going to try to start one here. And I have a trial version, so we'll see if it's going to cooperate. But the user's experience is super straightforward, and I'm going to skip through the trial bits here. You will not have all that. You can choose, do I want to collect meeting notes, and you're seeing that here, for opportunities? Do I want to update case records? Do I want to create or update accounts? This mobile app gives you a lot of flexibility for updating Salesforce records. We're going to do meeting notes because that's my sales rep who met with Dave, and I don't know what he said. And when I get in here, you can see the first thing it does once you get past the trial bits that I have is it asks me to tell you what I met about. So let's pick an opportunity. So my meeting with Dave was actually about this University of Arizona opportunity. Then it's going to go right into the information you think is most critical to your business for your reporting, for your metrics, for your coaching, for pipelines, for getting a feel for what's happening on all of those calls, because you can't get that insight unless you're also on the phone, and nobody has time for that. So we're going to ask the person a variety of questions, and you see I have multi-select, I have radio buttons, I have all sort of demo data in here. But as a user, it's pretty easy to come in here and tell you what happened in that meeting. I just answered 5 things and didn't have to really type anything in. I'm going to get a projected close date. I'm going to get next steps. I'm going to be updating stage fields. I can go ahead and put in barriers to sale. I can even put in projected revenue numbers. It's a strange number. There we go. And as you're seeing this, what this app is going to do is it's actually going to update, as you see here, it's going to update Salesforce fields. So it's mapping that projected close date to an actual field in Salesforce on the actual opportunity that this person picked. It's going to create a summary of everything, and I think we'll get to see that when I push next. That gets emailed to the person so everyone knows how this meeting recap was populated. It's going to save a copy of that to the actual record in Salesforce. So in the activity history, you'll see a meeting recap was completed with a full audit of everything I just selected. The last thing it will do, as I missed the button, is it's going to email, if you want it to, a complete summary to the manager or a designated person on your internal team. So not only do I now know what Dave said in that sales meeting that I wasn't present for, that my colleague or my subordinate went to, I'm immediately told by the application when the meeting notes have been entered into the system. So if I get that notification, let's see if it's sent through. Here it is. Here we go. Here's that email. If I get this in my email and I see all of a sudden that there is urgency on the purchase and they're going to make a decision by tomorrow, but there's a problem and the person changed and now it's not the right guy I'm talking to anymore, and you can kind of see I'm getting a complete overview of the status of this opportunity at a glance, and I can get up, I can go down the hall, I can pick up the phone, and I can ask my rep what happened, and really use that as an opportunity to coach, but also figure out what next steps can be to make sure that we close that business. If you're not in a sales capacity, it's also great for support. You can see what those interactions are like. You can offer coaching to make sure support is provided more efficiently or effectively, demonstrate alternate solutions that could be provided. I mean, depending on your use case, because these are completely configurable, this component of our software can be very powerful. So that's the meeting recap feature, and I like to go over that because while there is a bit of upfront work, I like to make sure everyone feels comfortable with and has seen the application itself, because users can also log back in, see recaps that they've completed. You can update, let's see, probably clicking on the wrong thing. You can update the answers that you've provided in the past. You can see all the information about the meeting that I attended to be able to actually start the process. So there's a lot of power behind this particular feature, and I like to spend 5 minutes or so of my trainings just making sure everyone feels comfortable with that. Let's see, so that's everything I had planned for discussion. I really hope that what I've presented so far has been helpful. I do want to make sure, we have time for Q&A now, so if there's anything else that you want to see, You can play stump the expert here for as much of an expert as I am. If there's anything else you want to see, you have questions about whether this product, another product, a customization we've done for you, I'm more than happy to stay on the line and address those questions. And I'll also make sure to send out a copy of this recording and make sure that you all have access to our online knowledge base. So if there are any questions, I will go ahead and open it up. All right, we have our first question here in the Q&A. Thank you. Is the cloud version included with the desktop? Included, I'm assuming you're talking pricing. That all depends, and I know that's a very cryptic answer. So we treat them as separate products because they are quite different and unique and have a little bit of a different deployment approach. But as we consult with you and we look at how many users you have now, what you're trying to achieve, the team does package them together pretty tightly. So if you're interested in finding out what the financial impact of adding, subtracting, shifting from one to the other is, the best route is really going to be to have a sales rep just get you a quote up front about it, even before, if you need to for budget reasons, even before we, take a look at it with you. We do offer free trials of everything you've seen. They should be at least 14 days. Even if you're a current customer of one, you can free trial any other thing that you saw me present. So the best way would really be for me to make sure it's an accurate answer would just be to get you connected with someone who could provide a quote. I know they do a pretty good job of packaging things up to make sure they meet the need with minimal impact. We'll see if any other questions pop up here. We do assist, I'll just sort of speak a little bit in case you're thinking or wondering this. We do assist with those transitions. So if you are going to switch from desktop to cloud, or you want to add cloud and add a whole team of people who work on Macs, my team actually oversees and helps with our go live. So we'll walk through the process with you. We'll make sure everything is implemented correctly. So you're not just going to be switched one thing off and one thing on and left out there. We do make sure everything does run very smoothly. I'll preempt another question that I usually get while I wait to see for another minute or so if anyone else has anything else. I know I see a few familiar names and faces on the call, and I know we've done a lot of custom work for a few of you. So if you are one of the folks I haven't had a chance to work with, it's very nice to meet you. We do a lot of custom work too. So for example, if you're looking at this list of records that you can recreate from scratch on our desktop version, and you're saying an object is missing or something really critical to our business isn't there, we can work with you and consult to add that in for you. Sometimes there are costs associated, sometimes it isn't, depends on your contract with us. But if there are ways we can make this work better for you and your users and your workflow, we do that. Much of what you're seeing in desktop is customizable. So if you don't work with cases, we can hide those. If you want to see different information in this business card area to give you more insight into who someone or what someone is, we can change the fields that are displayed. That does involve our professional services team. So if you're looking for the place in our software to do it yourself, you're probably not going to find it, but we do offer that. Same but different with our cloud edition. When you are looking to configure this, it can get a little overwhelming if you have large groups of people who need to sync different ways. I offer the consulting on that, so we work together to figure out how your users are expected to interact with the tool, but also how you want that data to get to Salesforce. And then I provide sort of a scope of what I think would be the most efficient way to get there, and then we work together to get you up and running. So if you're thinking about moving in one direction or another, or you have something now and you think we could maybe make it more effective for you, those options are all there and part of the consulting that we do. I'm going to put this slide up on the screen as we wrap up, and I don't see any more questions. If you're like me and you think of your questions when the call finishes, that's also fine. I threw the contact information up on the screen, so you can see I'm going to be the one behind this customer success email. So if you do have other questions or need resources, you can always reach out to that. On the more technical side, you're going to want to reach out to support@linkpoint360.com, or I'm more than happy to enter a ticket for you with that team so that they can take a little closer look on the technical side of things if something should go a bit awry. But the most important thing, I guess, other than my email address, is going to be the online knowledge base. So if you saw something today that you'd like to see more of, you can go to this URL and you'll see step-by-step articles, complete giant PDF user guides, shorter, more digestible quick tips, some FAQs, and even some longer form and short form videos. So you'll get to see me walk you through anything from a complete every single button, every single icon demo, or little quips on just how to achieve certain features or functions in our software. So I do want to make sure everyone has a chance to see that and to hopefully bookmark that. There are a lot more resources available than what I just covered today in this short session. So I don't see any more questions, so I will wrap things up with a big thank you for everyone joining me today. I really do hope that the session was helpful to you, that you feel a bit more comfortable and confident with our software solutions, or that some of the information that I shared with you can help you kind of go back to your teams and we can work together to make your experience even more effective and functional for your individual needs. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to speaking with all of you again soon.